Welcome back. Now, ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule wants ANC members to obtain clearance certificates from the police. This is to help the party identify those charged with crimes or awaiting trial. Magashule has also given his comrades 5 days to declare their financial interests. For more on this, I'm joined by a political analyst, Professor Sipho Seepe. Professor, thank you very much for joining us here on eNCA. Now, first of all, the Secretary General saying that people should actually disclose their financial interests. Should he not be the first, maybe, with his sons?
Well, I think not only him, but the entirety of the leadership of the ANC, starting with the president. And this is where the problem starts, because we know that starting with the president has gone to court to make sure that some of his donors, and one could actually say people with financial interest, and also him having financial interest in those affairs, should be the first to disclose that the guys have got nothing to hide. And if it leads by example, then all the leadership within the ANC must do that. As it stands at the moment, this is a non-starter. Members of the ANC would or are already asking questions that if you want to talk about being clean, we must start first with the CR funds campaign to ask the question, why is the president rushing to the courts to seal these donors? Because there is a link to that, and some are raising that issue, that if you now look at people who have been rewarded, some of them, there's a suspicion that those are the people who have donated into the president's campaign. So if you're starting with the president, then you can then talk about the top 6. They all must actually disclose. But to expect people who are far off from the center of power to be able to do that while you can't do it yourself, it's actually asking too much. And actually people are already asking that very question.
Professor Seepe, you know, we saw that letter from the president that he sent to his to ANC members, and he says in that letter, and I just want to you know, read that part for you, because I had a little bit of a chuckle, Professor, I won't lie, when I read this part. He says the ANC should publicly disassociates itself from anyone, whether business, donor or support, or a member accused of corruption or reported to be involved in corruption. He uses the word, as the president, accused. So there's nothing that needs to be proven in the court of law. Now, when you look at the ANC, you talk, for instance, about himself. We're talking about the Secretary General, Ace Magashule. We're talking about his spokesperson. Yes, she's on special leave, but his spokesperson, Kusela Diko. We're talking, for instance, about the same ANC that saw it fit to reappoint a Tony Yengeni to head up the committee dealing with crime and corruption when he was jailed for crime and corruption. So this letter by the president is really just a little bit weird. Shouldn't he start with himself, probably his SG?
Well, you are quite correct about the issues that you raise, but it also shows that one must read this as simply a PR exercise on the side of the president. You are not going to run your presidency by coming up with a statement that sounds laudable. What people want to see is that what are you doing as a president in the first instance. And if you are found to be beyond reproach, then you can start asking other people. And the same applies to Ace Magashule. If you are going to ask members of the ANC, they are going to say there are these allegations that have also been made against you. Are you going to disclose? Because this is all about the disclosure. But there's also something that is also problematic about that letter. That's almost such from both the president as well as Magashule. That suggests that people must prove their innocence. And that goes against our own constitution. People are presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. The ANC need to find a different tack on dealing with that. They should actually find a language that says our political morality demands that even though we may not have been found guilty in a court of law, but there are these things that we need to address to clean ourselves. And if you put it that way, you don't put this burden of being seen as if you are violating the constitutional principle, because members of the ANC would be the first to invoke that. So the ANC needs to deal with that issue, to say how do we deal with this, but also make sure that there's consistency. You cannot demand of others what you cannot give yourself. So this is where there is a challenge. And the president starts by saying people are correctly angry. And of course, this is a response to the people's anger. But it should not be because people are angry. It should be because the ANC has seen it fit that what its members and the people associated with it and the leaders are doing is actually wrong. But the first port of call starts with the president's funding of the CR campaign, because until you deal with that, members of the ANC are going to say people have been rewarded. Even on this tender, with these tenders, people are saying if you unravel who is in that list who donated to the president, you'll also see probably a link towards the tenders that people have received. So we do need to go back there. That is the original sin that we should not avoid to tackle.
Professor, you know, there's another thing that I actually noticed between what the ANC SG was telling members of the ANC and this letter by the president. I'm seeing more of the division within the party playing out. President Cyril Ramaphosa trying to show the ANC that he, you know, is the boss, kind of, but also the SG also trying to show that he leads Luthuli House. But also, you know, there's also the question of how the ANC responds to national. When you look at what happened in KZN with Zandile Kumete being brought back as MPL in the legislature there, you know, I see a lot of the divisions within the ANC playing out.
Yeah, first of all, you are quite correct. Ordinarily, when you are faced with a scenario like this, it is usually the Secretary General of the ANC who speaks on behalf of the party. Now you've seen the president choosing to say on this one, because of the criticism that has been leveled against him. And if you look at even the people who used to sing praises to the president, even those who campaigned in the media space for the president, have actually been damning, and there's been a chorus of condemnation against him, and also saying, we used to think that Zuma was a problem, but we can actually see that you are also part of the problem. And suddenly those people remember that the president was the deputy president under Zuma administration. So you see that element. So his decision to now say, I'm going to speak, suggests that there's a lack of trust that he has of his own Secretary General, and that creates actually it's beginning to play itself out. But the point that you're also raising about Zandile Kumete it's very interesting, because you issued that statement, and at the same time, the province has seen it fit to say somebody who is on bail can be put in. And of course, the province would argue that these are allegations, the person has not been found guilty. So until the ANC begins to unravel that conundrum, in terms of what does it mean to act this way in a constitutional democracy, at the same time protect yourself. But as I say, the biggest problem here is not what they both call for. It's the failure for them to be consistent. It's the hypocrisy that comes across. Like you say, just after Zandile was appointed to be a member of the provincial legislature, the president comes up with a statement. What does it say? Is he really the boss? Or is he simply responding to what appears to be a public outrage?
Well, thank you very much, political analyst Professor Sipho Seepe.